If she hasn't already, Ethel Cain is here to get under your skin in the best way possible. She can take you into the beauty of both the mundane and the twisted, show you where the confines of your little beliefs lie, and this is all done through her art, which is precisely why she continues to be one of the most exciting voices in music right now. Hi, I'm Kate. I'm an artist and I talk about things I love. And wow, I do love Ethel Cain, or Mima. Ethel Cain's music is incredible in its own right, but the artist behind the music embodies so many things I admire, which are slow enjoyment, upholding craft, and unabridged self-expression in such like a nuanced, unique way. I can also tell when I'm like down bad for an artist when their art serves as a bridge into more art for me. This is such a wild thing to say, but I really wasn't in like the Lana Del Rey universe until I fell in love with Ethel Cain's music and then was like, oh, okay, slow, ambient, beautiful time. I get it. If you're new to Ethel Cain, you might not be hip. It is a multimedia project. And this is the project of artists Hayden, Silas, and Hedonia. I don't know if I'm saying that properly. I apologize if not. And the album, Preacher's Daughter, acts as 1/3 of a trilogy that will play out in film as well as music, underscoring a different woman within this cinematic universe, all within the same family tree. I actually want to talk more about what I find most interesting about the artist rather than Preacher's Daughter alone, but I think it's important to give context of like what this multimedia project is in order to understand why Hayden is such a groundbreaking voice. So I am not great at cliff notes. I love to ramble. I love to elaborate and adorn. But I came across this article by a creator named Shuffled by Sarah, who did a pretty great summary of what you can expect from the lore of Preacher's Daughter, though. Like many artists, I believe Hayden has stated that it is open to interpretation. You are to take what you want to take from the piece, as you would with any piece of art. Preacher's Daughter is a 13-track, 76-minute long folk, rock, blues, southern gothic opera. Even that is just incredible. Following a fictional character, the preacher's daughter, who loses lover after lover and grapples with religious trauma and sexuality in her Alabama hometown, before being kidnapped and sold into prostitution. After attempting to escape, her captor kills and cannibalizes her. Whoa, that's quite a doozy. I really became an Ethel Cain fan with the release of this album, but I remember listening to a couple of songs off of Inbred and also just seeing the cover art and being like, whoa. I haven't felt horror in such like a beautiful package sonically. So again, you should listen to the album, take your own interpretations, or check out this post, or there's so many different fan theories around that you can find, and that's what's so great, you know, like it really is an experience. I think a lot of people try and create experiences outside of like the album itself, whether that's putting together like an event or, you know, like something special. Ethel Cain really embeds a lot of that community participation, even if it's not deliberate, just in the way she crafts something that's so multifaceted. Preacher's Daughter is a beautiful piece of work, and it sounds just as good live. I feel so lucky that I got to see it in person, not to mention the production prowess that Hayden possesses. I feel like we don't hear enough about how she engineers, writes everything, does the whole shebang. As a producer, and I would say predominantly someone who makes stuff with electronic sound, someone who records a lot of live instruments, or at least has the sound of something that feels much more live and organic. That is a whole other ballgame. You really get the sense that this is something that Hayden had to make. It's a rare combination of masterful and seemingly effortless. On the album, she said, "Overall, it's definitely a cautionary tale of what happens if you don't break a cycle and you let it continue to an almost ruinous point. It's what I see as a dark timeline of what would happen if everything hit its lowest point." Art is a refuge for Ethel Cain, and as said by Hayden on her Tumblr, in response to what made you want to make music, she said, "I feel I may burst otherwise." Ethel Cain is a really good reminder of what it means to be an artist and how it has nothing to do with how people consume or interpret your work or commodify it for that matter. Enjoying it as a craft and a practice that helps you feel more connected to the world as a whole. And I really feel like this theme of holding more than one thing or holding things that may seem contradictory really also comes through in her work. You cannot put this woman in a box, okay? She weaves dark and light, beauty and horror, just like your favorite film might become your favorite film someday, we'll see. And she creates a different separation between herself and her work, unlike most artists who would blatantly say that their work is an extension of themselves. I think I would identify with that. Hayden has talked about being more akin to an author or even like a screenwriter in relation to her work. I think a lot of artists like dip their toes into that way of storytelling, but it really feels like the Ethel Cain project, at the very least, is rooted in that, which is very unique, especially when you think about Hayden's incredibly interesting background. Part of the reason why I felt like I fell in love with Ethel Cain's music so deeply is that it recognized America in all of its dark corners, but somehow still holds a sort of warmth and reverence that can only come from someone who's experienced that duality. Again, there's a distinct separation between Ethel Cain and Hayden, and I don't think the two should be conflated. It's worth mentioning that Hayden doesn't just appreciate the Southern Gothic aesthetic, right? Like, she has lived it. And I think that is so refreshing in an age where we're constantly suspicious that someone's going to be marketed to us based on whatever aesthetic happens to be going off. If there's one thing that's for sure, Hayden is herself. She's a trans woman. She's also religious, or at the very least spiritual, or has some idea of God. And just the ability to remarkably hold so many different corners of existence that we would knee-jerk pit against each other is fascinating and really courageous. Someone actually asked her about being queer and being religious. How do you reconcile being religious and practicing religion with being queer? It's something I've struggled with for a long time, and I'm interested in hearing your perspective. She said, "Religion is personal, and no flesh and blood on earth can keep you from God, whatever or whoever God is to you. That's the beauty of spirituality. It exists both inside you and all around you. How is another human being going to police that? How could they even try to?" Such a beautiful and freeing thing to hear. I highly recommend checking out Hayden's YouTube channel. She shares introspection on like a level that I think a lot of artists would be afraid to. And her holding her own and such a unique identity, I think, is so inspiring. Her music similarly like lives in a distinct world, but there's so many different soundscapes and influences that will catch you unexpectedly. We can shiver at the blood-curdling horror of Potomia, I'm gonna say it wrong, but you know which one I'm talking about, and hold the pain and understanding and odd warmth that comes from God loves you but not enough to save you in Sun Bleached Flies. It's my favorite song on the record. Her art is for everyone because she made it for no one besides herself. She said this on her Tumblr: having a career in art is cool and whatnot, but I really do just do this stuff because I have a lot of fun doing everything myself and making little visuals and writing my little book and making songs in my bedroom and doing everything exactly to my taste. It makes me happier than probably anything else in the world. I think so much of art has become a competition or showcase of skill or something these days, but I really do believe in creating things simply because you enjoy it. Art for the sake of art. Delicious. She would be doing this whether or not there was a career around it, which is actually exactly what she did. She's had several artist projects before. Ethel Cain. I think we forget all the time that artists do not just emerge perfect from the womb. But when asked what are some part-time jobs you have worked, she said, I worked at the art gallery at my community college when I was 16 up until I graduated. I mostly spent my paycheck on gas and lunch, but I did buy myself a new Zelda special edition 3DS. I exclusively worked like 70-hour work weeks at some nail salon from 18 to 22 until I signed with Prescription. That is a label. I worked 11-hour days, 6 days a week, so it wasn't really part-time. I still made music hours every single night when I got home. Wild. And it shows you how much of the craft that you don't see. You know, like this alone is 4 years of unseen, unheard work. And I think it's very easy for artists and just people to forget that craft takes time. When asked, how do you feel about the rapid growth of your career? She says, it's chill. I just want to make $1 million to shoot my movies and build my farmhouse. So whatever gets me there the fastest. Ain't that the truth? As an artist, I really appreciate someone being so honest about how it is. And I've talked about this so many times, but it is really hard to make a sustainable living in music, let alone like execute your art to your vision just by virtue of how expensive it is. So the fact that she has done what she's done so far is pretty remarkable. And you'll see on her Tumblr, like she does not gatekeep the profession at all. She's giving advice on like getting a MIDI keyboard and picking out an EQ. I love to complain about how technology has made the music industry go, but the democratization of equipment and software has been so overwhelmingly positive, and I'm so lucky that I and so many others grow up in an age where that's possible and where someone like Ethel Cain could build their sound completely on their own. I think a lot of times I get really overwhelmed because it feels like there's never enough time with all my day jobs and trying to be a person and like have friends and relationships and all those things. And I found this quote really comforting. You never have to be a master at one medium. You can just make every medium you have an interest in work for you at whatever pace you want, which is something that's been very exciting to me lately. There is such an imaginary rush to get things done. Hayden is a rebel in that she is the champion of the slow and the quiet and the cultivation of skill, which I so admire. I highly recommend checking out her latest video on The Ring. It's such an interesting opportunity to kind of look into her process and how she cultivates this space for art that's so transcendent and personal and really wants to share that magic. But the magic for her happens inside, and that's the power of Ethel Cain. When asked, do you find it all overwhelming? She said, of course, but I have to force myself to remember I do still have my autonomy and I'm in control. Life is naturally overwhelming. You just can't fight it. You have to lean in. And lean in she does. I can only hope that Hayden will continue to make all the work, all the amazing work. And I'm so happy that we get to enjoy Preacher's Daughter and what's to come, and just see someone who's a role model for making and forgetting the rest. We all have a voice, a perspective, something unique to share, and if the multimedia experience of Ethel Cain doesn't embody that, I don't know what does. Tell me what your favorite song is by Ethel Cain. I'd love to hear. And yeah, I will talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.